one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give anybody who is starting or rebranding a business is you have to be like a rhino, super thick skin. You want to listen to what the people around you say, but you don't want your life to be dictated by it. If everybody tells you that's a stupid name, but you are just absolutely convinced that that's the winner, you know, there's a thing in being a business owner called instinct. And sometimes you might have to, I know I just told you ask them and listen to them, but my point is sometimes you might really have a winner and the people around you are just, they're not hearing it, they're not feeling what you're saying. So maybe you shop it to a different group of people, business owners or other people who are looking to rebrand. You have to go with your gut on a lot of these things. You want to pick a name that you think is going to be relevant, not just today, not just next year, but 30 years from now, 50 years from now. So, you don't want to pick something that happens to be flashy right now, like, hashtag beer. Well, that's great right now, but is that going to stand the test of time? Maybe. I'm not saying that it won't. But if you're looking to be a brand that is around down the road, you might want to think of, you want to incorporate, of course, something modern, but you also want to have a name that's going to go the distance. That would be my first assignment or recommendation to anyone. And I will tell you the truth, many times when people come to me and tell me that they want to start a business and I give them this very same advice, I don't hear back from them for 6 months. And sometimes that's a bad thing, and sometimes it's a really good thing because it forces people to sit down, take a look at not just having some, fun business idea like, oh, I thought up a new way to serve ice cream. That's great. But, do you have the time and attention that it's going to take to do the work? And are you confident enough to shop that name around? And sometimes it takes people a couple months to go, I really wasn't there and I'm there now. Or to really kind of think about and go through the process of multiple iterations of a name until they get to where they want to be. So taking 6 months is not always a bad thing. At some point you have to jump off. But this is a really, really important step in laying the foundation for your business. So I would recommend taking your time here. When I'm working on a branding campaign, it usually takes me roughly a month to come up with the front runner name that I'm going to choose, and then, another month for logo development and all of that. Last piece of advice on that, as far as picking your name, well, two points actually. First point, make sure that it is something, or try to make sure that it is something that is relatively simple to spell. For example, envy tan. Kind of hard to misspell that. I'm not saying that people don't, but I'm saying that it's kind of hard to misspell it. So we'll talk about how to protect yourself from that when buying your domain names down the road. But you want to try to choose something that the average person can spell accurately. Friendly dog, silly name, and obviously I wouldn't encourage that. But almost everyone can spell that correctly. We live in an age of autocorrect, and the URLs for Google, they don't have autocorrect. So be mindful of that, of the fact that you want your customers to be able to find you. So after you think you have a good name, you want to ask yourself, is this something that the average bear is going to be able to spell? And number 2, that was 3, but I really meant 2. The second point, and this cannot be overstated, and I cannot stress this enough, is go to Google, type in the company name that you think you want, and see if someone else already has it. Now, a lot of people will advise you, hey, if they're not in your same class of goods, go right around them. So for example, let's use that name from a minute ago. Let's say, hashtag beers existed in another industry, for example, shaving cream, but not in manufacturing of beer. In my opinion, that does not make it okay to use that name anyway. So you want to use something where you are not going to be in a position where customers are going to be confused. Oh, is this hashtag beers that manufactures shaving cream, or is this hashtag beers that manufactures beer? No, you want to be the only dog in the fight. So you want to make sure that nobody has your domain name. Not just your domain name, obviously, but that nobody is running a business that has any traction that is using that name. Now, I will go into extreme detail in future videos about how to go around that if that is the situation. But ideally, you want to put yourself in the most advantageous position, and that means that you want to choose something that nobody else is using. And that's gonna, again, that's another reason that sometimes it takes 6 months. People think, oh, I have a winner, and then they shop it to everybody, and then they go to Google and they realize somebody's already doing business under that name. So if it's an excellent idea, there's a really good chance, and I'm not saying that it is that way, but there's a really good chance that somebody else might be using it. So the second you think you have a front runner, the very first thing that I do is I go to Google and I type it in. Before I invest one more second in vetting that particular brand, I make sure I'm not going to step on anybody else's toes.